even gonna play the rest of that intro. Um, sorry for the wait. I apologize, everybody. For those who don't know, I guess I can tell you now. My wife and I, we did have a miscarriage. That's part of the reason why I've had kind of a up and down schedule the last couple of weeks, and a couple other family things happening. The operation to, remove it was today. It went a lot longer than I had thought it would. I actually thought we were going to get home much earlier than what we did, but it went well. It was good. We did take the option to do burial. So just to give you guys an update, so once we can get the tissue back, we will probably do a burial either at my parents' house or at my grandparents' house. But just to give you an update, part of the reason why I was away so long, I was in the hospital all day long. Now, I did actually, pay attention to some of the news. It's basically all that I could do is kind of going through social media. And it seems we have kind of a couple of topics really that kind of seemingly piss people off, or maybe that they're confused about, and a lot of stuff that seemingly is going under the radar. So today was a little bit of a black pill, I'm going to be honest with you, just based on the amount of attention that is not being paid to what I would consider the more meaningful news. And truth be told, it's kind of come to understand that this is kind of the way that it is. The average person is more in tune with the more kind of drama related news as it pertains to like Erica Kirk and like, making comments about the memorial service. We did have another event with another anti-ICE shooter. As it turns out, he did not harm a single ICE agent, only harmed illegal aliens, which was just karma at that. But one of the big things that's kind of the running theme is Nick was on PBD, and I'd actually covered a little bit of it. And I didn't think that this clip, I watched it in its entirety, I didn't think it was that bad. But you have multiple elements going on, a lot of which is the people who are still irritated that Nick will not move to the Israel did it position. But really it came down to the gross positive, the statement that he said that he believes when you're comparing between Muslims and Islam to Jews, he said that he thinks that Jews are more of a gross positive. I believe he even said net positive, but he pulled back and said, no, let me say gross positive. And it's a very nuanced argument. And also, I will open it up. We'll do a little bit of a Q&A as well, too. Because again, I'm kind of off my rocker and out of my element. So any questions you guys have, you want to hear my takes of, just fire them away in the chat. I'll do my best to pay attention to that. I do appreciate that. That was close. He says, God bless you and your wife. May he comfort you. Forgive me, I can't read that. May he comfort you, fill you with the peace that passes all understanding in Jesus' name. I appreciate that very much, says his wife, and then prayed for me. I do appreciate that very much. And that goes, and let me add that too. Big thank you and very grateful for all of the people who reached out. Whether it was on Discord or X or otherwise, texting me, I do appreciate it. It means a lot. And we're just thankful, to be on the other side of it. It was, a rough emotional thing to go through for sure. But with that, on the same notice, anybody who has any questions about want to hear my specific take, I'm probably more, casual, candid than I probably will be previously. I'm not as nearly as prepared for any kind of statements or any kind of talking points. It's just, crazy day. But from the Nick beef, though, obviously a lot of people are still irritated at his positioning. They're confused by it. We even had some people in our Discord, which again, we appreciate all the discussion. I think it's always welcome there. That even a lot of individuals in my Discord were kind of at their wits' end with some of these statements going like, what is even going on? I know a few people are largely concerned, is he bought out? Is he shilling? And I'm going to be honest with you, there's been a lot of discussion that I've had from what we call, I guess I'll call like the inside council. There's a tighter knit group of guys that we kind of talk a lot more about maybe more specific things. And one of the elements that we had talked about even months prior to all of this breaking down, was what we would really need to see for Nick, to make a stronger push would be he would have to take things a little bit more seriously. Now, I think the funny thing and the best way to explain this is I think Roman Michaels, and hopefully doesn't, he probably don't care, but he basically said, I think the argument's down to it really feels like people just want Nick to go on shows and scream that it's the Jews or, the Jews did everything. Like that's what they want him to scream. And I think on that element, you have to know your audience, right? This is kind of the same thing kind of the big takeaway I kind of got from Pine Sap and the constructive criticism he got from Nick himself after the Jubilee instance, right? Where he lost his job simply because he walked into a Mediasan kind of gotcha moment of willingly accepting and saying, yeah, okay, I like fascism. I am a fascist. But as much as, me, you, I, all the base bros in the Discord, all the guys, that they're dropping the hard R in the COD lobbies would agree with that and we would enjoy it and we appreciate that. That doesn't appeal broadly. It doesn't appeal to grandmothers. It doesn't appeal to women. And, as much as you want to say, you don't care about that, I don't either. But one of the elements to winning is voting. And while women and elderly and, everyone else in between can vote, there does come a level of you do have to package your message in such a way that can be palatable. And exactly what, forgive me if I screw this up, but Scuderia Bianchi says, I think he's reading the room, presenting a more palatable Nick. And I agree. I'm going to make this just a little bit, or not that. I won't read that. And I agree. When he says he's maturing, he's got a plan. And let's be perfectly real here. The change from Nick did not come just from the assassination attempt. Well, I mean, the change largely has come from the assassination attempt. I guess what I mean to say is it's not because from the element of downplaying Israel's role. We saw this in the day of when he addressed and gave the eulogy for Charlie Kirk. That to me was the moment where I really saw Nick take a step forward. And I was like, I really wasn't expecting to see this. And still to this day, no one in this side of the space has given a better eulogy to Charlie Kirk than literally his arch nemesis. Now it's kind of poetic justice when you look at it in the whole, in that element, to be honest with you. But I want to add another caveat in there too, which is it's kind of wild that what I would consider one of the single sole sources of carrying the weight of what this movement is, pushing, not even pushing, I mean, like scraping back doors open by himself, to see that many people at least like not even give it a week or 2 weeks to maybe let his take kind of saturate, to immediately go to like, he bought out, he sold out. I'm not going to be the one who says you need to be loyal. I do think there is some element of like, you would want to have loyalty, because I am going to be the first guy to say, yeah, zero trust system. But even for me, it was like, I was caught off guard. I wasn't expecting it, but I didn't immediately move to like, oh, he's bought, he's sold. Because at the end of the day, on both sides of it, all of it is just like, you just don't know, right? We don't have a lot of definitive evidence around this whole situation, or let alone anything pointing to that Nick was being bought out or anything along those lines. Obviously, it's all circumstantial. But on the other side of that, I will side with the conspiratards. I'm not saying that to take, break it down, but just to be an exemplatory of the camps, that there is seemingly a very strong kind of push against anyone asking questions. I'm beginning to see a little bit of this from like 9mm SMG. And I just think, you have to have a level of just ignorance to have the audacity to claim anything's definitive when we don't know. And the only source that's kind of given us much at all is like the sheriff's department and the FBI. So I don't know, maybe I have just a lot more nuance than the majority of people, but I just, the entire thing to me kind of just pushed me back a little bit, because I think overall, this is what I'll say, I don't think our movement right now has the maturity that it needs to do anything meaningful. And I'm not saying it as like, I'm better than you or whatever. I'm just saying it in the sense of, I think it showed that we are clearly we are not as cohesive and as directed and as, I hate to say it, but as unified as what we need to be. Like, we're still even balkanized in the dissident right. There's still a lot of these different factions inside us. And so I think how that's going to play out in the election, ultimately, I don't care whose opinion's whose, right? Like, I don't care, yada, yada. I care that we get what we need, which is a Christian nation. We get people out of this country, mass deportations. We get, this Weimar condition stuff out of the country, get the degeneracy out. So at the end of the day, to me, it's like, I don't care who it is. I don't care what they've said. I care that like they get it done. I care that they accomplish the goal that we need them to do. But even with that though, people egos get involved. And I would be an idiot to say that, Nick hasn't done things on ego as well. So on all of those elements, it's just it's disheartening because not in the sense of, we're not mature. It's disheartening in the sense that I really have a bad feeling that Charlie's death ultimately is not going to mean much in actionable policy that we would like to see from the administration. But what it will be is a bit of a revival. It'll send a lot more people to church. I think that's a good thing. But to let it be a flash in the pan moment and not see the administration do more. But, if you were following me for a while, you would know I'm not surprised by the administration not doing anything. And we'll get into a couple of those things. But coming from that, and the main point why I brought it up, and I'll get to some of these chats here in a second. I apologize, guys. I want to get this point, is that Ron Unz started, he not a strong like hit piece or anything by any means, but Ron Unz kind of at least opened with some level of speculation as to what his thoughts were, and now we're even seeing the reaction to that and people, screaming about it. And to me, it's like, I see that and I just go, oh, interesting. Like, I wonder why he did that. My first reaction isn't like, oh no, like he's bought and paid, like he's a Jew, he's a shill, but Israel bought, like, I think that's a little whack, right? It's like, at a certain point, you're going to have no one to point to. Everyone's bought and paid by for Israel. And so I do think there needs to be some level of discernment that we need to have that we don't have currently. But to go back up to some of these here. Yes, don't forget to smash a like button. Thank you, Tix. Jim says it will take a dozen more Kirks before people have it in them to realize the seriousness of the situation. And that's kind of what I've been, thinking for a hot minute. Glad you brought that up. I bring up Anna Kasparian quite often just because she was adamantly, an enemy of majority of all the policies that we would have wanted. And what do you get from her? Well, the other side of it is, the moment she gets assaulted, she's pretty solid for, being a left-wing kind of pundit. But that's the sad part, which is like, does every single person have to literally be touched in order to like open their eyeballs or like maybe see things in a different light? And that just, I think, opens the door to some conclusions we don't want to have to assess. Scuderi Bianchi says, Nick's got to take the next step out of the Groyper niche in order to spread his message. Not everybody will buy into full Groyper, and he understands that. It's part of it too. And maybe there is an element of this too, which is, he's had an audience that, about 2 months prior, he stayed around like 100. He'd been building quite a bit, but he basically had around 80 to 100,000 was kind of his core audience for a hot minute. And then it blows up to where it's like almost 400,000 on Rumble. It's probably a lot more peripherally and other elements. So there is probably a lot of people who basically walked in a month ago, liked what he was saying, and then when he said something that they didn't like, they have no kind of history or chemistry from his previous takes. They just think he's another show because maybe they don't have the history there. Maybe they're not too familiar with who he is. We've Mogger Fogger said he figured he'd come join us. I appreciate that, brother. Biggest Diggus, it's what happened during the Spanish Civil War that wasn't resolved through voting either. If anything, it made it worse because it grants the regime a faux coat of legitimacy. Well, this is kind of the idea of winning outside the elections, right? There's two elements. Obviously, you want to be able to get your guys in positions of power, so voting. But the other element of that is making your messages palatable in the first place. So if you are in a society that's all commune, like it's a one massive commune, if you were to begin to broach capitalism like a hard icebreaker, it's just not going to work. So you have to do things that kind of massage the culture to where you need it to be. And this is kind of outside the bounds of that. So for example, a good example of this is Arval with Return to the Land. Now this has all the hallmarks of being a political story, right? Where media and everyone's going to come in with their takes, but it's not a political action. It's not two politicians. It's not a politician at all. It's just a guy doing something that then brings about the attention from the mainstream in the political purview. So that's what I mean by, and you can't abandon one for the other. You have to be doing both at the same time. I do think, though, there is an element where Pineset brings up, which is there's probably a lot of us already who have maybe put ourselves in a position where that's not even going to happen, with especially with how easy it is to pull up, Discord messages and things like that, because we still live in a cancel culture society. The average person, if you literally said the hard R anywhere, they probably won't hire you. We are still in this environment. And so when you look at it as the whole, there's still parts of the culture that have to be drugged to the right. And sometimes you can't plan it. Sometimes it's just on God's timing. Sometimes things just happen that just can be taken advantage of. It's kind of like a crisis. You can basically steer it or manipulate it, and not to say that it's always nefarious, but using it in such a way that would benefit your interest. And that's kind of the idea behind that. Coming up on a couple more of these here, we have Mogger Foggery says, folks tend to live too much in the internet world versus reality. And what I would say to that actually is there's parts of that that's true, but I do think that we are getting closer to those worlds having less of a disparity between them. And not to say because people are being introverted and everything's online, but to say that the majority of where people get their opinions from, is online. And that does carry weight in the real world. And when you think about it, the average person does pick up their phone. The only issue becomes, though, is are people maintaining the healthy grain of salt, which is thinking about maybe I'm in an echo chamber. Maybe I'm wrong. What if I am wrong? And I think a lot of people don't do that anyways. And that's just part of the game. A lot of people, even I'm experiencing this now, a lot of confirmation bias. People go and listen to individuals just to hear them concur with what they had already had a preconceived notion or an idea. And if they don't do that, right, if they're listening to a person and they don't do that, well, then they write them off and they're gone. So there is an element where I think the biggest disparity still is the full-blown alignment that you see in these internet communities. Because that obviously doesn't exist IRL. People are a lot more scattered physically than they are, digitally. It's a lot easier communication or a lot less of a communication barrier online. Because Dickish says, took the left 50 years to take over the system. What we need to do is navigate to a position where we can utilize unique opportunities to take the system by its throat during a period of its weakness. Right, and exactly that's what I was bringing up. That's what I mean by being on God's timing. Sometimes these events just happen. And there's not to say well, how can you, turn a chemical plant explosion into into a right-wing message? It's sometimes you can't. It's just knowing how to play the game. And that is just ultimately the way that it goes sometimes, in politics being very, very finicky, because all it really does take, and that's why false flags are used, right? False flags are used because there is always an element generally that as much power may be centralized in some of these governments, especially in the first world and especially with cell phone cameras, that they still do need the public's consent. And that's not to say everybody will agree, but it's to say that they at least get a plurality number. It's at least to get around 30% of the people, so that when you are walking around and you think that what the government's doing is such an insanely retarded idea, but when it's every so often you're running into people IRL, you're also seeing it online, you at least are able to convince yourself, okay, there is a sect of people that maybe believe in this. And so it comes off less as the government's just basically doing whatever it wants. So there is, elements in that too. Yeah, biggest dick is writing the discernment you're describing is friend-enemy distinction. We suffer from the poor usage of that. Yeah, that's very true. I did a strong episode on that, which is funny enough. It's the best performing Spotify episode that I've done here with the podcast, live show, live stream, whatever you would call it. And it's called Who's We? And this is something that we need to start saying more often. When Emily Saves America writes, let's and we need to and us. Who's us? Who's we? And honestly, this is kind of goes along with the Republican Party and MAGA in general, which is a lot of the pushback you get is come on, we or us. And the thing is no, there's no we here. It's I am a Christian nationalist who thinks we should borrow some elements of female modesty from Islam. You think the reason why we need to go bomb Islam is because of what I like about their culture, right? And so there's these strong differences, but that ultimately becomes the issue of the big tent conservatism. This becomes the issue when you make your party so big because the other side is an absolute monolith. You have to begin recruiting, and then what happens? It gets watered down, diluted. It's the same old story. You guys understand. Hannibal Barkus says, my prayers for you and your wife's loss. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you very much. That was close 667. The demographic is big and full of potential. They're also spiritually immature, and that's the issue. And the thing is could you even blame them? Could you even blame them? And truth be told, it's kind of a wild element when you do think about the aspect that Pine Sap himself, and I've seen it from many others, talk about how Nick was the reason why they turned to Catholicism. I don't know how widespread that is, but I would imagine, if Pine Sap said it, I would imagine there's definitely probably a few others who feel that way. But again, it's hard to complain about something that you don't have an active solution for, right? It's like, we know this is happening. We know that the youth is like not going to church, but at the same time I go, well, it's hard to blame them, and it's like, what if they did try? What if they did try to go into church? They try to discipline themselves. And the first church they walked into, and Central Chicago is led by a female deacon, and she's speaking in tongues, and half the sermon is about how she needs to omit half of what Paul wrote. I mean, and we know these things have been happening for some time. I guess it becomes an issue of, like, for me, for example, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but for me, I'm like getting ready to be 30. I'll be 30, by the end of this year. And I can't look at that anymore of like blaming other people. I look at it as like, if that really was such an issue to me, it's like, man, I should have done something about it. I should have put myself in a position. I should have chased being a preacher then. If I didn't want to complain about this, like I should have. And obviously you can't fix everything, but there's an element of that. And that matches robustly covers our entire movement, which is some of these problems, complaining and trying to win at the debate table, as exemplified by Charlie Kirk, you're not going to win. So you have to find other ways, and that being becoming the person you wish you saw was there, right? Being the person that you wish was checking out your groceries at Kroger, being the person that you wish you were going to see as a doctor, because we have to fulfill these roles. And understanding too, we are in the minority for a lot of this stuff, especially the more the edgier that you get with a lot of the speech here too. Going up for a couple more of these here. Biggest Dick is continuing. He says, public opinion is a top-down system. Assuming popular movements are not directed from the top is a folly. The Overton window is another tool to generate consent. Look at the Israelis used British Ricin. I don't know what that last part is, but that's the whole idea behind the false flags. And you're kind of spot on, Biggest Dick. I think we are pretty much on the same page here. The manufacturing of consent. And this is also part of the reason why females voting is so deadly to our system, because women obviously are agreeable, but women, I wish I had the correct terminology, but everyone's probably familiar with the copy pasta, which is essentially that like high testosterone men and autists are like the only individuals who can remove themselves from societal viewpoint and have their own individual, just them, them versus themselves. And is what I just was told true? And they pass it through their own filter that's just them. They think about it for themselves. For women, that is almost non-existent. For women, it is consensus. And when Google and Silicon Valley and YouTube and many other, elements of social media and the government too, is able to make certain kind of concepts ubiquitous. And like for COVID, for example, if you were to Google anything during COVID, most female are going to see 18 different results that all say the same thing, wear your mask, yada, yada. So it's like they're out. Their ability to determine if something is true are a lot of people saying it is. And we can see how quickly, how faulty that becomes, which again, something you have to take into example, because you need to take these things into account. You can't win blindly. You can't just close your eyes and not know what the winning condition is and hope that you win in the end. That means all strategies have to be specifically aimed towards what the actual win condition is. So for example, if you're playing Age of Empires, it doesn't matter how robust you make your economy or if you make a bajillion soldiers, if the win condition was who was first to build the wonder. You don't build the wonder, you don't win. So that's kind of, to rope that in there and on the strategy element. I will go to the super chat and I'll go back to where I was at in the chats. Thank you very much. Manny S. You heart that too. He says, the West must turn to orthodoxy, not Catholicism. The Catholic Church has been turned into a joke by the gays and women. I appreciate that very much. That is, and I've said for quite a long time on this element in particular, maybe I did fall initially into the camp that was searching for tradition. And again, thank you for the super chat. I don't know if I said that or not. That I lean orthodoxy. And that's kind of what I've said. And I say that with a strong buffer in my mouth, just because I've not been to a parish. I've not walked the walk. So I hesitate to claim it if I've not even been in the church, personally. Right now, I'm still attending a Lutheran church that's nearby me. It's close. My wife's family's Lutherans. That's why I'm still there. I hesitate to wedge myself in between the orthodoxy and the Catholic debate. I really do. I understand the reasons why. I guess to me, I hesitate to dive into that because I find it to be not a prominent, what's the right way to say this? Obviously it's prominent. Obviously it has ties to salvation. Obviously it has ties to the younger generations and how we can kind of galvanize them and be able to build the structure around them that they would need, that we don't have to do this a second time. I agree with all of that. And I do think there's a lot of elements that point me to orthodoxy being the answer to that. I guess when I look at it of what we're up against, it's like, I don't know if we can afford having brother wars right now. To me, it's like, I don't know if we can afford to have brother wars. And understand, with the win condition, is that a part of the win condition? Now, I do think there's aspects of it that are relevant to it, but I don't think that is the win condition. And I will always hear people out in their arguments. I love this stuff. I consume it like crazy. I listen to Jay Dyer and Mr. Gordon. That to me, it is like, I get it. It's hard for me to go to the spot of fighting this battle right now. We need to solve this answer right now. I think you could pull it back and just say the West has to turn toward, the West has to at least have a negative reaction to what Protestantism is doing right now. And I think that's a good spot to stay, which is Protestantism has to clean itself up. And it's not to say the other sects don't have their own issues, but it is here in America, American being largely Protestant, we have to answer for some of these issues. And that needs to be, and I think it's easier to rally with the reaction, right? Rally that this stuff has to go away. And then maybe we can, and then we will. It's not it's like we're going to decide, we'll table this and never talk about it again. And then I think we can kind of return to maybe the brother wars a bit and be a bit more agreeable. If that, I know people maybe don't like that I have not a strong enough take on that, or, and I'm willing to go, all Catholics, it's not real, and all Orthodox, Catholics only true church. I'm just being honest with you, man. And I'll say this again, to me, what I care about is winning at the end of the day. I care about the fact that I don't know if, tomorrow's not guaranteed, man. And I got a daughter. I care about getting as much accomplished as humanly possible while I am breathing on this earth and am able to do things, that I will have a stronger sigh of relief that my daughter will have at least a better society. At least I will have left her, at least I will have done everything in my power, to have done something that would have made it so at least it wasn't as bad as it was when I was going through it. At least that's kind of the goal there. But again, thank you for the super chat, brother. I appreciate that very much. I'll go back up to Jason Smith, because he had a bigger one in here. Jason Smith says he thinks the game with Nick was they tried to blame Groypers for Charlie without evidence, calculating that Nick would immediately turn and blame Israel. They must have been shocked when he did not. Well, and I think to me, I was shocked too. I can't lie. I was shocked too. I'm not going to sit here and say and lie to you guys. And I was actually, I had 190 IQ. I knew Nick was going to say that. To me, it was I was okay. I take it as this guy has been on fire and on point for how long? For me to immediately flip the lid on that guy over one thing that I disagreed with over how many years. Like, to me, like, I think that's the overreaction. Like, I would be the one overreacting there. I think it's fine to be like, hey, well, I got a couple of questions. Maybe like not like, what are you talking about here? Can you explain yourself a bit better? That's the more respectable and appropriate response than I think what we got. And I think once we got what we got, Nick, being the guy he is and provocative, immediately went to war with those people. So it comes off a bit more probably performative on that end than what it would have been. But I mean, he's an attack dog, brother. Like, that's exactly how he behaves. He performs. So it's no reason why it kind of, to me, I think it's kind of gotten a little bit out of hand, and I can see both sides there. We have Wanmi asked me a question. I don't want to miss it. We have that's actually hilarious. What is a groiper? I saw Tix probably gave you the answer there. That's actually hilarious. And we have Margaret Fogger says, my wife can determine how to cook my steak properly. I don't know where that one went. Wanmi said, seen the news. Oh, there it is. Seen the news about the kid shooting ICE officers. Well, that's the funny part. That's the news, is that he missed all of the ICE officers. As far as what I saw, maybe he struck one, but he didn't kill one. But he did take the lives of, what would you call that? Detainees, if you will. I don't know what the right word would be. But those who are being held at the facility. I did see unfortunately, because that's all X is becoming with all of this political violence, I did see the assassination photo of him on the rooftop. Brutal. That's, I don't know if I would say it's worse than Charlie, because Charlie's full-blown video. But it's definitely worse than what we saw from some of those photos from the Atomic Crooks aftermath. They got that guy on a headshot. It was not looking good. And then Anthony Tony, I know, and I'm not gonna be mad if you guys want to, rep your colors if you want to. Like, I'm not gonna be mad. Just don't take it too far. It says Jesus said no to divorce. The church is the bride of Christ. Jesus is the bridegroom. Yeah, I think it's funny when you think of some of the disciples' reactions when Jesus talked about divorce, and them kind of being like, oh, that's what marriage means? Like that's how far you have to go in this covenant, and like hearing them kind of freak out about it, even in those times, is kind of funny. Like, yeah, it's not luxury dating. It's not what we treat it nowadays. And I feel bad too. I'll make a side caveat on that point. Like, say that is the case, right? I'm just being objective. I'll hold my cards close to my chest, but let's go with that, right? Let's go that it actually is closer to the Catholic covenant. It's not as free and loose as what it is in a lot of the Protestant like denominations. And what if a lot of people ultimately are just like living in, I don't know if it's considered a mortal sin, but how many people get in these divorces and like those new marriages, those new covenants will not be recognized by God. It was like, no, you're still married to the first person you made this covenant with. I don't care what kind of, justification you made up in your head. And this is like a side point, because obviously there are probably many of you here in chat and many people probably parents who are like this, and just people they know. There are a lot of people who are on their third or fourth marriages. And it just kind of makes me think, I'm kind of curious how that conversation is going to go. If you make it to heaven and they're going to go, actually, no, your partner's still John. It didn't change. And kind of how that would feel. But, maybe I'm being too dreamy in there, too out there, too visionary. Because Dickus again says a smart idea would be to push a non-religious paradigm of survival. It can curtail a lot of the infighting and let the church divisions be handled in due time instead of right now. And I think that is the marker there. I think what's probably more galvanizing is when it's pushed through the racialized lens. I think seemingly a lot more people are on the fence with that for whatever reason. I get it. Trust me, I'm not saying I don't get it at all. But trust me, I do definitely get that. Hello, the Marble again. She says, thank you. I'll check that out. Oh, yeah, she's figuring out what a groiper is. Marble, you have been here this long and you don't know what a groiper is. It's kind of funny. Today, guys, in class, today, it's funny. We have JP says the Catholic Church is not defined by the infiltrators. Teachings have not changed. And I get there's an element of that too. Trust me, I do understand that. Anthony Tony, he says you judge a workout program by the success of the people who follow the program. Same with religion. And this is probably, bothered a lot of people, is when I said that, right, I kind of make that, I use the what would you call that? the property of transitory property, which basically is if you were meant to, right, so the way you're supposed to judge a Christian is you judge them by their fruits. I would expect you would, if you were to judge a sect, right, you would judge it by its fruits. And I think when you look at Protestantism and its fruits, you would go, okay, there's something wrong here, right? You look at Protestantism and what's occurred here in America. If you were to consider that its fruits, and again, the same argument applies though about the Catholic Church. It's hard to judge it by the infiltrators. I think the same thing can be said with Protestantism and what occurred with the Rothschilds' infusion of cash. Well, that's still argued, but with the Scofield Bible, the dispensationalism, and the kind of push of a new belief that kind of developed in 1913, all the way through the New Age. And now we have Christians who don't even know how far they are from basically the vast majority of all of Christian history. But it's easy to lose sight of that when we only live to be, 80 years old. And because again, Atlas is right. The Protestants seem to be holding the dagger in our side on almost all fronts. Very true. And I guess there's a stronger distinction to be made inside of Protestantism, which there is Protestants, like, big P. And then you also have the evangelicals too, which has kind of taken its own turn. But evangelicals are some of the worst. They are some of the absolute worst. Sligos just says, Catholics wear yarmulkes. They are Jews. Oh, I read that wrong. Okay. Catholics wear yarmulkes. They are Jews. Jews are Jesuits. Jesuits are Masons. All are Zionists. Just different masks, my dudes. And that's the thing. I think that's an argument that I would have to have a stronger understanding of Catholic history before I could make any kind of, meaningful statement on the Jesuits. I'm actually more familiar with Protestantism and Orthodoxy than I am anything Catholic. I will do my due diligence though. Largely seeing how America First is a lot of Catholic influences. The Lost Creole says the Catholic Church has been infiltrated, but do not abandon Peter's boat. We have not had a good pope since the state of Israel was created. And I've heard those things there too. I have a hard take. Does anyone know of Adam Green? Yes, Adam Green of No More News. I've only ever seen him get annihilated in debates. Not to say that he doesn't do good work, but I'm always generally watching from the Christian angle, and that's generally the only debates I see him in, is he's pushing the, I don't know if he's like atheist or pagan or what he is, but that's the majority of debates I've seen. I think Corey Mahler was the one that I caught him on, and there was another one that I caught him on with, someone who wasn't nearly as prominent as Corey Mahler. Still didn't nearly go in Adam Green's favor, but again, that's part of my biases. House Leotardo says Catholics can't be Masons. See, I uttered the word Catholic, and it's taken a turn. No, it's fine. I'll go through these. Yeah, Elo Lamarbo says he took out detainees, and then Tony says Adam Green is a low-IQ atheist. Is he an atheist? I don't know what he is. I don't actually know what he is. I'm gonna hard segue. I'm gonna move up some of these so we can move away from the Catholic stuff. I appreciate it. I get it. Trust me. But not to talk all about Catholic stuff today. I will catch up here. The world as we know it. He says, I'm personally a Presbyterian, but cannot stand the PCC. We should choose the denomination based off of what we each believe to be true in terms of scripture. It's funny that you say that, because what's wild is even if you look inside the sects, right? A lot of people, I saw High Impact Flicks. I think a guy that does really good work. He does a lot of like police brutality in Israel things as well. But he made the point with the denominations, 40,000 of them, which one do I go with? And I think it's crazy that even when you look at like the hierarchy, the structure of some of these churches, you go and it's like the PCC, right? Each one of these, like the Lutheran, has both a left wing and then a right wing organization at the top. You go to Baptist and you have Baptists have a left wing and a right wing. I would name them, just forgive me, I'm forgetting the names. But it's true. You go like in Methodist and you can keep going down the line. And it shows not only is it just broken up in terms of like different, it's sects, it's broken up down the political aisle as well too. And so Protestantism is fractured into 1,000 different pieces. And ultimately, I think that will always, be its biggest flaw, is the lack of kind of cohesiveness among the branches there. And let's go. What's one of these next ones here? We have Actually, no, I'm kind of caught up on these. Actually, let me go back here because one of the next things I did want to bring up is this was insane to me, and I don't know who ended up catching all of this and how crazy this was, or how covered it was, I should say. But let me make this a bit bigger. So this is the first one that I saw this from. Now, this is, let me get that off screen. Dominic Michael Tribby is one of the better, I would call him a journalist. He's one of the best ones, I think, on X. I like him a lot, and partially because I am biased. I think he's kind of, I don't know if he's one of our guys in terms of Christian nationalists, but he is pretty committed to the truth and very anti-Israel, so I'll take that. But he writes, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly telling associates in the Middle East and Israel that I control the U.S., I control Donald Trump. This is the first thing I'd seen from that. But then it kind of got me thinking too. The funny thing with it was, and I don't know how many people caught this as well, this was insane. So I saw from the AF Post, there was apparently a couple of statues that were erected. So this is from AF Post. I'll scroll back a little bit. Why do I have 8 notifications? Scroll back here. So a bronze statue that was titled Best Friends Forever, showing Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein holding hands in a plaque celebrating their long-lasting bond, was installed on the National Mall. It was erected by the anonymous art collective, The Secret Handshake. I mean, this, I'm not even joking you. My first thought, I didn't think anything. I didn't think it was by chance, coincidence, nothing. I'm telling you, my first thought went to like, this is a humiliation ritual. I mean, look at this. They have him like out here dancing. Well, it's effeminate for one, but I think this is, it's got to be a humiliation ritual. I'll scroll over a little bit. This is them basically telling Trump, like, we own you. We're going to continue to humiliate you. Because where did this come from? Now, you know, maybe it was some couple of deranged leftists and maybe they have this collective together, sure, whatever. But I'm telling you, to be honest, my first thought was like, this was them going like, hey, we own you and we're going to publicly humiliate you over here. And additionally, what many people probably haven't been paying attention to because all the other stuff's going on is just the idea that, or not the idea, the tensions in the Middle East have, once again, they're escalating. Now, maybe you caught a little bit between the, Italy sending some of its navy over there, and I think that had to do with Greta Thunberg's flotilla, whatever the hell you call it. One of the vessels in her fleet was struck. I'm not sure what the cause of that was, but you had, I think Italy responded in force. They sent some of their ships out there. I think that's when you ended up getting, I think the North Korean dictator, I always forget his name, Kim Jong-un, came out and said like, well, nuke Israel or something like that, which is just crazy. But it's clear that Iran is at least positioning themselves as they are not backing down. Largely the tension's coming now here that you have reports, wasn't really covered much in the West at all, but the craziest thing that came from that was the fact that reportedly, allegedly, you have not seen it, but I'm just going off the reports from a lot of these Telegram groups and the networks, was that the most alarming aspect of what was going on was information warfare, but in the lens of Iranian agents has supposedly taken footage from inside Israel's Dimona nuclear facility. This is a clear kind of frightening and alarming kind of development because as far as we understood, it was the other way around. Basically, Israel had a bajillion agents inside of Iran. It seems that Iran has been working that same kind of side of the aisle. And, but the majority of your X feed today was probably about Charlie Kirk, and for good reasons, but I think more so for poor reasons. It looks like that narrative is kind of born into something brand new, which is Erica Kirk is now being heavy speculation. A lot of people are saying they find it distasteful or whatever. I think it's okay to ask questions. But to go back, let me put this on screen here. So you have this, but the plaque is also kind of wild here. Here's a better picture, HD of, Trump and Epstein holding hands. But the plaque is aggressive. In honor of Friendship Month, we celebrate the long-lasting bond between President Donald Trump and his closest friend, Jeffrey Epstein. Voiceover, there must be more to life than having everything. I have a hard time buying that this just came up very coincidentally in the midst of everything going on. I can't buy that. To me, it just is like it's kind of like sliding the photo of Trump's house across the table, right? It's like, yeah, do that, buddy. Now, maybe completely wrong, but I do find it to be maybe a bit of a response in terms of some of what Trump had been saying about Netanyahu privately had been getting looked at amidst all the Charlie Kirk stuff. And in one of those, you do have, what was the quote specifically from Trump? He's fucking me. I think that was the quote. So maybe this was a response to that, kind of a jovial pushback of, yeah, Trump, try to publicly, be derisive towards me again, see what happens. But let me just ask the chat too. How are we feeling about all of the Erica Kirk speculation now uprising? I'll go to that. I think I bookmarked one of these tweets. We can go kind of look at it a little bit here. They go back here. Oh, forgive me. I almost clicked on the intro and I was about to blow everybody's eardrums out. Let me scroll back up and we find a couple of these. I'll start with one of the member ones here. Hi Jen. Forgive me if that's supposed to be something. I apologize. I just have issues with how much Protestant emphasizes Paul's scripture, and I'm not completely sold on Paul. I can only really count on the Gospels. Margaret, I'm on the other side of that. I find the Paul, the anti-Paul argument very, very weak. Maybe I can go into detail on that later time. Margaret Fogger says, United Methodist and non-independent Baptist. Yes, that is correct. Yeah, that. I was trying to think of, there's like all these different ones. And then now non-denoms are running so rampant now too. It's crazy. Where on the dawn did the great protect you? It's funny. Let's see here. Yes, make sure you smash the like button. Just going through chat, seeing if there's anything here. Let's see here. Willem Forge, Iran has always had good and counterintelligence. They aren't the same as the Arabs. No, I don't think they are either. I'm just saying during that period of time, we weren't getting anything from Iranian intelligence. We were really just getting like, it was one kind of operation at a time and going off one after one. The only thing I was really seeing from that side of it was they were kind of, they began ramping up a bit of their deportations. But we saw that they were noticing that a lot of the Israeli agents in Iran specifically were Indian. And so I did see some elements of that too. That was funny. We have Donnie Burke in here. What is up, my brother? I appreciate you being in here. Margaret Fogger says, well, we continue to say people to Christ, right? Yes, that is the ultimate goal. First, seek the kingdom of God from the book of Matthew. That should be your first aim always, period. I don't know why we're talking North and South Korea, they might as well not even exist in the American purview. They're so non-existent to us. And Willem Ford just says, what's going on with Erica Kirk? What is going on? So Nick actually responded to one of these. What is going on with Erica Kirk? Great question. So let's find the one that Nick responded to. Well, I think I'm going to find the one that he responded to. Lord have mercy. Oh, there it is. This one. Basically, I'll summarize as I'm trying to find it here. The narrative has kind of shifted to Erica Kirk being looked at in terms of having something to do with Charlie. Or maybe it goes deeper, a lot more of this kind of, it's getting to be a bit QAnon. I can't lie, that is beginning to be a bit of what it is. But thank you very much for the super chat from Shep. Erica, I think she's very PR trained and it comes across fake, but her love for Charlie doesn't seem fake. It's hard to draw accurate conclusions. Oh, I didn't put that on screen. I'll put it on screen now. Yeah, I tell you what, when my mom, of all people, says that she found Erica's performance to be a bit performative and it didn't tug on the heartstrings of my mother, that's when I'm like, okay, maybe it did come off a lot more synthetic than what. I was willing to give it a little bit of grace, but maybe it did. Maybe it did rub people the wrong way. So here we are. Let me put this on screen, guys. This is what is going on with Erica Kirk. And this is how I found it, was from a reply from Nick. But supposedly this is actually going off. This tweet here from Sir Escanor, it's got almost 3 million views now. So what does they write? What do they write? America, the Erica Kirk files. Meet Erica Frontvey Kirk, Miss Arizona 2012, Trump pageant girl, which also, like, I can't, man, it's like her husband was just publicly executed. Can we not post her naked, or not naked, but like, you know, scantily clad body all over the internet? It's like, man, dude, like, it just doesn't feel good, bro. I wouldn't want that on my worst enemy. It says 2. Or we skipped the first one, but that's the first one, right? So she was a, you know, former beauty pageant, obviously boss girl, clearly doesn't match the mold of, you know, typical trad wife or whatever. This is number 2, that she ran Romanian Angels, an orphan industry in Constanta. And again, I haven't verified any of this. Take this for all that it is. Tick says it was a fake tweet. I'm curious, which one is the fake tweet? Oh, the Erica Kirk dating app. Yeah, I saw that earlier. Yeah, we need a turning point dating. Yeah, that was fake. So she ran Romanian Angel. Supposedly, her resume is that it's a honeypot. Her father, who I don't know about, is Carl Kenneth Francevey. I'm even saying that right. So basically, making out the argument that there's more than meets the eye with Erica Kirk. Now, I might go through this on a deeper. I might actually make this the subject of the video tomorrow that I will make, because I've not explored any of this. Again, I was at the hospital all day. But that's basically it. And there's a lot, there's a few other accusations that's kind of matching in there too. But that's kind of, you know, to summarize it. So this is what I see here. So I just see the Nick, and this is where I kind of step in and read it. Candace responds initially, saying that she can only respond to number 7 and tell that person that they're spinning absolute BS. Okay, so let's stop there. What is number 7? Number 7, the claim from this person says that meanwhile, Charlie Kirk's TPUSA UK, so this is the UK branch of Turning Point, launched at the Royal Automobile Club under Prince Michael of Kent, Grand Master of Freemasonry. George Farmer, Candace Owens' husband, sat as chairman, tied to Andrew Tate long before Candace. So that's the claim, is that George Farmer sat as a chairman at the Royal Automobile Club, which has connections to Freemasonry. So what does Candace Owens say to this? She says, yes, my husband cut a check for Turning Point UK. This made him chairman, and she puts it in quotes, for a couple of months. What exactly does that reveal? It reveals that he was interested in politics and similarly cut checks for Nigel Farage in Brexit that same year. Interesting. Yes, he was in attendance at the Royal Automobile Club when I was invited to speak there with Charlie. That had nothing to do with him. It was just a location which was chosen by the TPUSA donor who hosted me and Charlie to speak. This is the equivalent of suggesting that if I spoke at a JCC club in the past, which I did back when I used to support Zionism, that I am somehow connected to Bibi Netanyahu. Or if I speak in a private golf club, then I am funded by Tiger Woods. George isn't even a member of the RAC and never has been. To your last point about Andrew Tate, George knew him peripherally through Paul Joseph Watson. I think they maybe hung out like 4 times before me and George met. Also, I like Andrew and Tristan. They have always been good to me and have defended me a lot through stupid smears, yada, yada, yada. So this person responds to her, actually. I'll get that on there. We got another one here from Josh. Appreciate the super chat, brother. Thank you very much. He says, great streamer. Let's wish our chat was as high IQ as yours. My mom said the same thing about Erica Kirk. Hey, don't feel too bad, man. You guys blew up like crazy. A lot of people in here kind of are familiar with me, familiar with my takes. But thank you very much. Nonetheless, I do enjoy my my community and my audience very much. Maybe I don't say that enough. I do appreciate you guys quite a bit. Thank you very much. And thank you for the super chat, brother. I appreciate it. But so Sir Escanor responds to Candace Owens here. And in the response, he actually kind of holds her feet to the fire a little bit. And it didn't come off very contentious when I read it the first time. He writes, Candace, thanks for the reply. Let's drop the theater and stick to facts. You admit that George cut checks, briefly chaired it, briefly chaired TPUK and that you spoke at RAC. Fine. Those raise questions because of the pattern we're tracing. Simple asks. 1. He asked how much did George donate, when, and under what conditions. Transparency and speculation. That is true. Now then he goes after a couple of these. So let's go to the remaining angels. If allegations are false, NGO registration, audits, and placement records should be clean. Clean paperwork clears the air. So basically giving her a list of things to give. So he goes on to say, if you want this settled, release the documents. It's also no surprise that Tates and yourself defend one another, just like others put on a show and slander one another. It's all a single script, however, which I will say does raise a little bit of a bell, especially when you do look at the fact that there was a weird instance that happened about a month ago where Andrew Tate seemingly kind of came out at Nick and was like, well, you really can't blame a group of people for all your problems. And it's like, hey, do you even watch the show, idiot? Right? Like, that's kind of the response to Andrew Tate there. And then to be able to see this kind of backtrack on the connection, given what we have just went through the last couple of months, does raise a bit more questions. But here's where Nick comes in. So Nick responds to this guy himself, not Candace. He says, also please look into Rebecca Mercer, who hand-selected Farmer as CEO of Parler for a stint. The Mercer family has some very interesting connections. Thank you for your due diligence in investigating. We need all of the answers. And then this is a guy who actually was able to send me a few things on Telegram. Bandstigator, I think is his name. He's pretty solid, a good account on X. Follow him if you want some solid information there. He writes that Tucker, Omid Malik, Jordan Cohan, Rebecca Mercer, and Don Jr. are all intertwined through 1789 Capital. So just to give an information out there to you, I'm going to actually bookmark that. I have that bookmarked so I can actually go back and look at some of these claims being made. So when I have time and I'm not at the hospital all day, I'll get some more out to you. But let's go back to a couple of the chats here. I want to make sure I'm not skipping out on you guys. Let's see here. We'll go to here. This is a response to him from Donnie to Shep about Erica Kirk. So Donnie writes, I believe Kennedy's wife was in on his assassination and a good amount of evidence to support it. They were in an arranged marriage, just saying, can't be ruled out. Yeah, right. And that's the thing. I think Ian's right in the macro, like Ian Carroll, that's who I'm referencing. Ian's right in the macro, which is when you have a political assassination of this level on American soil in the way that it occurred, given the political climate, with what we know from all of what's occurred, there is an element that you would have to say, all of those things where you would have to go. The clearer suspect, if you just know that, would point to an intelligence agency. I think that would just by itself, you would just go, okay, intelligence agency is the first bet, then we'll look elsewhere. So I think he's right on that element. And then we have Shep going, I guess I'm just hopelessly naive thinking people are good, but knowing people are inherently evil, unfortunately. Well, that is part of it, which is, you have to understand, like, and I think that we can look at this the way that Mel Gibson kind of portrayed the devil, and I believe it was The Passion of Christ, where it was this androgynous being holding this 44-year-old, like, baby, or like, 95-year-old baby. It's like an old elderly. And I guess the argument there to be is also on a couple of things. Like, the devil is not going to appear with horns. It is not like this character we've made it out to be. The devil twists beauty. It uses it uses these persuasion techniques in the way that it kind of infiltrates. It will tug at your heartstrings. And so I think, again, this and that's why ethos of the three remaining pillars. That's why ethos is the only thing that matters anymore. And I've made this argument multiple times. Logos is gone because there's no trust. So why would if I don't trust the person across from me by themselves, I'm definitely not going to trust their reasoning and logic. Hence, this is exemplified all of the times when you have someone will bring a study up, right? You'll bring up a study, Destiny's like, well, I have studies that say this. Like, that's gone because nobody trusts each other. So logos is kind of out of the picture. Pathos is gone. It was the more recent one that's kind of went out the window. is because people began to catch on all of the emotional manipulation techniques that were being used to scam them into doing things or buying things they didn't want or need. And that kind of wears thin on people. And next thing you know, they don't care. They don't care that this person has a sob story. They don't care. The pathos is gone. The emotional heartstring tugging is gone. Still works on women largely. For men, it's kind of out of the ballpark. So then you rub at ethos. And ethos is the only one remaining, which is the person just trustworthy in appearance? And it's not even just appearance, it's presence, it's impact, it's charisma, riz. It's all of these things combined. And that's why I think you are seeing a lot of this flippantness, even when Nick says something people disagree with, because ethos is all people are willing to invest in terms of, what they're willing to trust. And it's easy explainable as like a nutrition, right? If you needed to get on a diet, the doctor sends you, hey, I got a dietitian, go check this guy out. And you show up and the dietitian is 485 pounds and they're going, yeah, you need to do. They have no ethos. Their body and presence and charisma and everything that makes them who they are is not indicative to what they are telling you, which is to say they're telling you, here's how you need to be healthy. Here's how you need to eat to be healthy. Here's what you need to do to get your body physically fit. But if the person telling you that is a literal land whale, there's no ethos. So you don't trust them because it doesn't match what they're saying. And then there's a bunch of different elements you could kind of go down. But I think that explains a bit more in a slight detail, but in philosophical way of why the current trust system kind of operates the way that it does. And in the same way that I don't care what Erica might say about how she loved Charlie or their love story, I don't care that she might pull on my heartstrings. It's the ethos. It's the only thing I trust anymore is what my eyes see on the screen. And what my eyes see on the screen is a woman putting on a performance because I think she's trying to not weasel her way, but kind of position herself to be able to be seen as this box girl, take over TPUSA. And, and next thing, that's that. And ultimately, you see it's kind of shameless with the way they're doing all of the fundraisers and such as well, too. Maybe there's a bit of a fear that Charlie was the actual heartbeat and the engine of the entire operation. And with him gone, maybe they fear that this whole thing will kind of crash. And they're getting all these, TPUSA chapters. And maybe they don't think they know what to do with them. There's a lot of moving pieces with that. But again, it's hard. It's hard because you don't know when you're being lied to. It's easier to know in person, but across television and screens and on social media, and now you add in the element of AI. It's I think it would be in most people's best interest to really only trust whatever they feel like they could touch or see. It's getting to be that point, sadly. And I'll catch up on some of these chats here. Let me find one. Cover the Joshua Van one. The Freemason rings from Erica. I did see that. I don't know too much about Freemasonry symbology to give you a take on that for real. Ozempic, the Jews exposed Tylenol to cover up Motrin as a way to divert from Bayer, which is why I take Ozempic. Interesting. Not heard that one before. I hit mute. Oh, I apologize. Hopefully I didn't. Hopefully I'm making sound. But that's kind of just giving a reaction to some things here. And again, apologize for being late. I didn't want to run this too long. This ultimately probably not going to even get put on Spotify or on the podcast. I wanted to just check base with you guys. It's just been an aggressive day. And I try not to talk too much about things when I've not read too deeply about them. I obviously have like my base take, but in my base reaction to certain things. But when it gets to be deeper than that, and kind of give more actionable kind of takeaways, that's when I want to have everything in front of me. Because I like to feel professional. I don't want to be one of these guys who's like turns into a rage cow or a low cow because I just like am going off with what I think or what I assumed. And I think the moment you start making assumptions that often and that quickly, it's like kind of the end of your career. So I will Stick around with chat if you guys have any more questions, anything you want to talk about for a little bit. But that was the kind of the main stuff I just wanted to look at. Obviously, Israel, Iran. If we wanted to go to something else, this is actually, I think, this is actually a good thing to move to. The lack of chimping I'm seeing about the H-1Bs getting walked back. I made a post about that earlier today on X. It is kind of insane, to be honest with me, that we had Howard Lutnick in like a minute and 18 seconds say annual fee like 5 or 6 different times. Donald Trump also said it, I believe, once. And here comes the Caroline Levitt, whatever her name is, whatever that lady who hides her cross now because she's been attacked so much for the Epstein stuff. She comes out and corrects for them. There's been no statements such afterwards. And they basically walked back the entire H-1B changes for the most part and put it to, the Timu version of it, if you will. And I think, again, did Big Tech give somebody a call? Did Netanyahu give him a call? Like, I don't know, man. And it is getting to be not even just convoluted, but it's getting to be why, like, where is MAGA? Like, it's getting to be that point where it's like, was MAGA a psyop? Like, are there actual people out here who care about making this country great again? Why are they not holding Why are they not holding Trump's feet to the fire? Right? Like, where's all the MAGA guys demanding that we get full transparency for what happened with the assassination? Well, and you could just keep going from there. But again, I think that Willem Forge is pretty spot on here with what he said. We do need to pray for guidance. We are in the lights are off, right? We are in the dark on a lot. And not to say like we need to be confused or scared, but we do need to pray for clarity, better direction. Help, let there be a leak or a whistleblower, like help us understand and make better sense of what is currently going on, and surrounding us. Because it does suck to feel like we're beginning to lose sight or beginning to lose an idea of like what really is the end goal of a lot of these people who are our enemies and wanting to be able to better prevent and protect yourself against that. But who am I kidding? Anybody who's still left in MAGA is just probably a cultist or an absolute coward. So what am I to say to that? And here we are, no new wars, golden age, most transparent administration ever. And it's Kash Patel every other day going, yeah, there's no credible evidence that Epstein did anything. He definitely, no, he's a nice guy. That's the current state of that's the current state of things. But let me go up on chat here. I know I saw one from Donnie a little bit ago. Where did that go? Officer Talmud. That one was aggressive. Let me see if I have anything in bookmarks. I bookmarked so many things, but ultimately didn't dive too deep into much of anything. We have Health Ranger now saying that Sebastian Gorka's writing Trump's tweets. This was funny. This is supposed to be Tyler Robinson's public defender. The best comment that I got on here was like, man, he lucked out. He got the biggest lawyer in town. I probably laughed for like 15 straight minutes at the hospital in the family lounge, dude. And people were probably thinking I was insane or schizo, but I thought that was pretty funny. And we do have this, and I got a few words I can spare about this, guys. Taylor Hanson, who was at one point one of many subjects of the Tenet Media lawsuit, makes a video, and I'm not even kidding you. I like Taylor Hanson. Don't get me wrong. I like Taylor Hanson. I think he does good work. And I'm really glad that he went down to Springfield to cover that about the, eating the cats and the dogs. I'm no joke. I'll mute it here. He tries to basically debunk Zeb and many others' theory by just standing here. He doesn't provide any receipts or anything. He just shows the 2 locations and he goes, listen to this, dude. I'm not even joking you. I feel like he had to get paid to do this. Because there's no way you offer this as like it's any amount of evidence. It is like your just subjective thought and opinion on the matter. It's just not, your opinion does not hold weight to really anything. And this isn't me saying like, I don't like Taylor Hanson. I'm just saying You made this whole 8-minute video, and when you have people posting like triangulation with the crack bang analysis, all of that, this is what you post. And so we'll watch it. This is what Taylor Hanson posts as like a response to all of that.
Stairwell here and taking the shot. But this railing right here with this kind of thin line of material is where people are claiming to have seen the flash on video that lines up with the shot. But if you actually look at the angle that would have taken, the trajectory makes absolutely no sense. So it's even gotten to the point where...
Okay. Like, I like it just like, was this done to like inflame tensions? Maybe this was rage bait a little bit? Like, I don't know. And then to see CCG Bryson go, this is a great video. It's like, yeah, I'm sure he did think that, dude. And like, I don't even want to be enemies with these guys, but it's like, are we serious? Like no attempt to show your work at all? Like, just, wow, that angle, that's just a ridiculous angle. Anyways, you know, I don't know, man. And then you get people who are like, the last stream we went through it for quite a bit. People banging the table. They're like, it's definitive proof. He clearly has the rifle. If it ain't gonna hold up in court, shut the fuck up. And I'm trying not to cuss, dude. I'm getting bad at it. But man, if the Kyle Rittenhouse footage isn't gonna hold up in court, that grainy, zoomed in to 2000% magnification, that's not gonna hold up in court either. So what are we talking about? What are we talking about? And this is somebody who I think does like good work. This is somebody who I think has done great work in the past. I ultimately am a little hesitant because he was connected to Tenet Media, but I don't know. And there's a lot of people who are doing this. And it's funny because Aaron Carroll had a guy show up in person and did the opposite. Like, they showed up in person to get all the alternate angles. Like, here's the camera, so that way you could look at it of like, oh, it was zooming this way. Well, here's my guy's angle, so this is what it sees on the other side. And then in the same breath, you get all of this, and then, you know, did he get the call? I mean, like, it's like, what are we doing here, bro? This didn't disprove anything. And quite frankly, like, and this isn't being to be rude at all, like, I really don't hold Taylor Hanson's opinion for worth much at all. He just doesn't articulate himself that greatly. I think he does good work with photography and, you know, in journalism. I mean, like, there's like, I could grab 10 guys out of a crowd who could say the same thing that guy did. It just, I don't know. It's, you know, I try to judge off of a lot of the reactions and the way people behave and things like that too. And again, apologies for cursing, but that's kind of where I will end it. I didn't realize I'd already been gone like an hour and 15 minutes. I was trying to aim for like less than an hour. I talk too much, huh? But I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for everybody for being here, as always. And I expect a video coming out for me tomorrow. Not too set on what I will make it about, but video tomorrow. Might honestly probably go live tomorrow as well too. And with that, I appreciate you guys. And again, appreciate all the well wishes for me and my wife and for our family. I do appreciate that greatly. And you know, I just really hope that we get meaningful direction, meaningful change of everything. But I got a bad feeling, guys. I have a really, really bad feeling. But appreciate everybody. You guys take care. Have a good night. Christ is king, as always. Pam Bondi not only needs fired, she needs sent to the biggest kitchen of all time so that it takes her at least 5 years to escape from it. And Kash Patel needs fired and deported. And we need someone who is actually meant to be in these positions, holding these positions of power, meaningful positions. Have a good night, everybody. I'll see you next time. Take care.